So excited to see everyone this Tuesday. Welcome to the live stream. We are just going to get kicking off here in a second. So I see we already got quite a bit of people tuning in. So welcome. Real quick, while we are all just jumping in, let me know where you are watching this from. What state and market are you in? I always like to see where people are tuning in from, whether you're on YouTube, whether you're on Facebook, even LinkedIn and Twitter now. So we're everywhere. But if you don't know, if you're new to my channel, my name is Kyle Handy. I'm a real estate agent and team leader here in San Antonio, Texas. So let's see where all my fellow San Antonio people at in the chat. And but if you're tuning in from anywhere else, I'm excited to have you here and thank you for joining. We will get kicking off in just a second. So today we are going to be covering a topic that I get asked quite a bit. I get a lot of agents that are just getting licensed, and they're kind of like wondering, hey, what do I do when I get started, right? Like you go to real estate school, and and it's kind of like they don't really teach you how to actually get business, how to be successful. They just kind of teach you the laws and all that kind of stuff, some basic maybe strategies and tips and marketing. But you get your license, you're like, oh my gosh, like what do I do next? And so today we're gonna have 11 things that you need to do as soon as you get your real estate license, right? So we're going to be starting all the way from the beginning, talking branding. We're going to talk about business plan, all those great things. I've got some links and some different actionable items for you to actually do as well. And the other thing too is, even if you're an experienced agent, you're like, well, maybe this isn't for me. I already been in the business a year or two or three. You'd be surprised. There's a lot of these things that I'm going to cover today that I see agents who've been in the business a long time, they still have not yet implemented that into their business. So definitely stick around. But all right, here we go. So here we got Pam. Good to see you, Pam, as always. Love it. Awesome. Oh, the Nashville Home Squad. Tennessee's in the house. Love it. All right. Sherry, hey, good to see you. I look forward to talking to you here soon. I know we got to get on a call here soon, I think this afternoon. So, and then we've got Doug from Oak Island, North Carolina. Love it. Peter from Fort Myers in the house. All right. We got Facebook. We got our Facebook user from Las Vegas. Got to see who that is. I always have to look afterwards and see who these people are. It's hard to see it on the stream while I'm doing it. But Aaron is from Atlanta. We got Lars from San Francisco. Well, Lars, I can't say that, I'm hoping you success next week when the Cowboys come play your 49ers. But, I'm glad you're on the call nonetheless. So, all right. Paula from Central Florida. George. Awesome. What's up, George? Let's see. Anella from Atlanta. Maybe we got a lot of Atlanta here today. Andrea from North Carolina, the Virginia border. Okay, we were just out there last summer. Loved it out that way. Sasha, what's up? Good to see you, Sasha. Glad you're on the call. Awesome. All right, guys. Well, here, I'm going to try something. So 2 different ways here. And I don't know, because I'm always trying new things, right? I want to see if this is going to work. And so I'm going to have to share my screen here, and it's going to black out everything that I can see. So I'm not going to know if it's going to work. So I'm going to do this for a second, and then I need your feedback, just because then I'll stop, come back to my screen. I just need to know that it's working, okay? Because I don't want to go for an hour and have it not work the entire time and not know about it. But I do have some slides that I want to share, and so I want to share those slides and present them. So let me go ahead and do that. I'm going to add this to the screen, and see, when I hit this present button, the whole screen's going to go black. So I want to make sure, though, that it works. So we'll say present. Y'all are helping me out here. So, all right. So here we go. So now, again, I don't see anything except for my slides, but can you still see me in a little picture window? And then are my slides next to me? So let me know if that's working. I'm sure in the future I'll figure out some other way to make this work better. But this is just how StreamYard does things when you kind of mix it with Canva, which is what I've got my slides on right now. So let me know. I'm actually about to exit back out just so I can see y'all's feedback. to let me know that this still looks correct. All right, all right, perfect. Works well. It's working. All right, good deal. So then I am going to go back into that, and I'm going to know that it's working. And then from time to time, I am going to pop out just so that way I can check the comments and the chat to see if y'all have any questions as I'm going through some of these things. If I don't get to your question or to your comment right away, I will, at the very end, of course, go through everything and make sure that I answer it right then and there. Or if I don't get to it, I'll definitely answer it in the comments after the video. So, all right, well, let's go ahead and jump right in. So these are the things you want to do first as soon as you get your real estate license. So first and foremost, we all know this, you got to pick a brokerage, right? But you'd be surprised. I've definitely talked to a bunch of agents that have had their inactive license for months. I mean, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, and they haven't done anything with it, right? Like they just got, they passed their exam, did their fingerprints, and they've just been kind of like sitting around. So you got to choose a brokerage. And ideally you kind of want to know which brokerage, or at least kind of pretty close to what brokerage you're going to join, before you're even have your inactive license. So that way you're like ready to rock and roll. As soon as you get that inactive license, you can activate it and get going. The other thing that you're going to want to make sure is most likely most brokerages are going to require that you join your local board of realtors and also the National Association of Realtors. Not all though. So, I mean, of course, that's something you have to make a decision if it's worth it for you. And if the brokerage you're joining is going to require that and all that good stuff. So I think it's I highly recommend joining a local board and also the National Association of Realtors. But obviously, everybody is different in different markets and all that good stuff. But with the local board, you get access to the IDX. You're going to get access to the lock boxes. It makes it really difficult if you're not part of a local board to do business, right? Like, I'm in San Antonio. I'm part of the San Antonio Board of Realtors. I'm not part of, let's say, the Austin Board of Realtors. So if I had a client in Texas that I wanted to, work with them in Austin, it's about an hour away from me. I can do it. I'm licensed in Texas, but it is difficult because I don't have access to all their data. I've got to coordinate more with the listing agent to try and get properties opened. It's just a lot more work. So, I mean, yeah, it is more expensive to join a local board, but you're also going to get a lot of benefits and tools. You get access to forms and sometimes digital signing platforms and stuff like that. There's usually some benefits that also come in addition to the IDX and stuff. And then as far as the National Association of Realtors, I actually didn't know all of these existed, but you can see that list on the right-hand side there. Those are a lot of the benefits that we get as National Association of Realtors. So, I mean, there's a lot of services on there that I've used in the past, and I didn't even, think to ask if there was some kind of a discount that I got. But you get discounts with all these, insurance place, DocuSign. I did know about that one. I actually do get the discount for Realtor on DocuSign. But then even like taking courses, getting your certifications, your ABR, which is the Accredited Buyers Representative, the ePro certifications, another good one that I hear a lot of agents getting. So there's a lot of great things on there. But then also you have the perception, right? Like when you're a National Association of Realtor member, some clients, maybe they're not going to be, understanding the difference between a real estate agent and a realtor, but, it depends. Maybe they are, right? And then they only want to work with a realtor. That could be the case. I mean, I've never really had that come up, but at the same time, I mean, it's that perception. Real estate realtors are kind of held to higher ethics standards and that type of thing. So you may get somebody who is concerned about that. And so anyways, and then of course, if it is required by your brokerage that you're choosing to join, that may be something that you have to consider, right? All right. So that's the first thing you've got to do, right? You got to kind of consider that, all of that stuff about joining a board, joining the National Association of Realtors. And typically that is separate from your brokerage fees. All right. The next one, you got to start really putting some mind into this, is to develop your brand. Okay. And, I see agents that have been in the business years and they still don't have a cohesive brand, right? And I'll be honest, I was guilty of that for many years in my business. I didn't really fully understand the power of building a personal brand, or any brand for that matter. And so I just kind of like did things willy-nilly and nothing was really, matched up. My logos, my headshots, my colors, they were all just different, right? Like if I was on one social platform or if I had a piece of, listing presentation, nothing was cohesive. And it's easier to get cohesive if you start from the beginning and you just really start, even with a basic brand. Pick one color that that you really like, and make that the focal point of your marketing, right? And just always use that color. Get the hex code. Just having it be blue or be green or be orange is not enough. There's something called a hex code, which is a series of like six numbers, and could be letters and numbers technically. And so letters and numbers, and you use that specific hex code as the color for your brand. So, in anything that you're going to be doing when you're creating marketing and you have a color selector, yes, you can just choose the color, but at the same time, if you can go a little bit more advanced and make sure that you pull up the hex code and choose the exact color, it does make a difference. Like I'm telling you, just starting that from the beginning, make a little note template and say, this is my hex code that I'm going with. There's a great website you can use called coolors.co. I've got that listed on here, that you can kind of just like really start to play around with different colors. So you could go with just one color. It's literally like you press your space bar and it's just going to, give you all these different color combinations. And when something stands out to you, you can either lock in all the colors or you could lock in a particular color and then just start, hitting the space bar again and see, which colors combine with that color to fit your style, right? So real easy, pick your colors. Get, if you want a logo, get a logo, like a basic logo. You can see my KH logo that I've got down there for Kyle Handy, pretty basic. Grab that off of Fiverr. And I've actually got a link here later on in the presentation about Fiverr. But I mean, it cost me like $8 or something. So it's super cheap just to get a basic logo made. You can even make your own logo on Canva if you really wanted to. I've just actually helped an agent make her own logo a couple weeks ago in like 5 minutes, right? But just have something that it's like, okay, I'm latching onto this. This is going to go on my marketing, whether it's social media graphics that you make, whether it's physical, like print marketing, whether it's, going to be, whatever, right? Like postcards that you mail out, just anything you do, you want that stuff to be the same across those different things. And you may change your brand down the road. That's fine. But at that point you'll do a full rebrand, and then everything from that point will be different, right? But it'll always be cohesive no matter where you're at in your business. Headshot, get a professional headshot right away. I talk about this a little bit later as well. But getting a professional headshot is so important. Don't just, snag a picture off of Facebook and like crop out, the person standing next to you and like whatever, go get a professional headshot. It's, relatively inexpensive. You can even, try and reach out to a couple title companies, a couple lenders. A lot of times they're offering like a free headshot session at like a training they're doing or at some kind of upcoming event. So you may not even have to pay for them, right? If you really are worried with that. But otherwise, I mean, just try and get something that is a professional headshot. You can put that on your social platforms. You can put it on your business card, all that good stuff. Fonts, same thing as colors, right? Like pick a couple fonts that stand out to you, that you like to use, right? Like these fonts that I'm even using in this presentation, like these are my fonts, right? Like I know my main heading font is League Spartan, right? So like anytime I make anything that gives me the ability to change my font, I change it to match that, right? And same thing, like my subheading font is always the same, like whether it's my website, whether it's an email that I'm sending, whether it's a presentation that I'm doing on YouTube, right? Like I try and match all of the fonts so that way it all starts to make sense. Also, when you're developing your brand, you got to really start thinking about who is your target audience. Again, I made this mistake early on too. I said, anybody who can buy or sell a house that's in San Antonio, right? Like, and that is way too vague, like way too broad, way too vague. You really got to hone in on the specifics, right? Like, do you want to work with first-time home buyers? Are you a, single mom? Are you a car guy? Like, what is it that you like and that you're kind of networked in and that you really want to target? And I promise you, I know that I had the fear that I was like, well, if I kind of pigeonhole myself and I just, go after one target audience, that like eliminates a lot of business for me. It's the opposite. The more you focus, the more you hone in, the more business you'll get, because that right audience will find you and they'll say, this person is perfect for the job. That's who I want to work with. versus if you're just like another real estate agent out there competing with the other thousands of agents, you don't stand out, right? And you're not going to get any business. And trust me, even if you do specialize in something, people that maybe don't fit that mold, they'll still find you and they're still going to work with you, if you've somehow captured their attention and that type of thing. But you're going to still have a primary target audience, and that's going to be part of your brand. You want to think about that when you're developing your brand, is who is your target audience. And then in the very beginning, I definitely recommend picking a social platform of your choice. Hopefully it's probably the one you're already good at or you're already mostly using. Don't, think like, oh my gosh, I got to get on every single profile, every single channel. I mean, at some point, especially if you have the budget or a team, that type of thing, and you can do that, great. It's not going to hurt. But, don't get overwhelmed trying to get on TikTok and YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and doing all these things right at the very beginning. Pick one social platform, just like, developing your target audience. Are you going to miss out on some business on Instagram and on TikTok and on YouTube if you're only on Facebook? Yeah, maybe. But you know what? You'll get so much more business trying to really hone in your efforts on that one platform than you will by just being watered down and not doing anything on all of the platforms. So pick one platform, really go in on it. Once you start to, get good at it, and you can almost do it in your sleep, or you've, systematized it and somebody else can do it for you, then you can start, layering on other platforms as well. But in the beginning, just start with one. Now, if you want to kind of have a couple other profiles and just make sure they're cohesive, that's fine. I'm not saying like don't go out there and get an Instagram account. In fact, I would just, I'd at least go reserve the name, right? So that way, like if you're building a brand, maybe it's not a personal brand, if it's like certain brand name, you own all of those handles, right? So they can't be taken out from under you, but your main efforts, like where you're going to put that work, goes into one platform. All right. Let me see here. I'm going to tune over. I'm going to go check the comments real quick, make sure I haven't missed anything. All right. Jessica says, what's this? Jesse says, can come up with or contract out a brand style guide too. So you always have it at the ready to remember what your fonts, colors, and design elements are. 100%, Jesse. I've got the same thing. Mine is so basic and plain and simple. It's literally just a notepad document I've got on my computer, but I have sent that out to multiple graphic designers, video editors, and it just saves, me a ton of headache and hassle trying to coordinate things. Yeah, so having just like a basic thing like that is super helpful. Awesome. All right. Let's see here. I'm going to jump back into the next slide now. Okay. So developing a marketing and advertising plan. Okay. This is really important too, is to have a plan when it comes to marketing and or advertising. All right. And these are two different things. In the beginning, I didn't even know the difference between marketing or advertising, right? I was like, oh, it's the same thing. And now I've definitely come to know there is a difference. So like advertising, bottom line basically is you're spending money, right? Like maybe you're paying for some ads on Facebook or Google or whatever, but you're paying for ads. Marketing is like anything that you might be doing on digital or, in person as well. So like any kind of social stuff you're doing, maybe marketing is like, you're doing stuff with your local HOA, right? And you're just like doing some kind of marketing at a neighborhood event, right? Like that's all part of marketing. But then once you start to pay for it and you're, basically paying to get shown, then that's when it kind of translates into advertising. So figuring out exactly, how you are going to strategize to get leads. So, and I've got an entire marketing plan that you can go have for free. Just go over to my blog, kylehandy.com/blog/learn /real estate marketing plan. And you can go grab my free marketing plan there. But here's the bottom line when it comes to marketing and advertising. It's got to be simple, right? Like don't make this very complex plan that you've got, 17 different marketing avenues, because, in the beginning that sounds like it's going to be helpful, but where it starts to be more difficult is when you realize like, well, now I need to like track the effectiveness of these different marketing avenues that I'm doing or advertising avenues that I'm doing. It's not enough just to do something. Like you need to also be able to track it, measure it, and then like improve on it. And if you are trying to take on way too much, you're not going to be able to do all of that stuff. It's going to get way too overwhelming. And at the same time, once you start getting busy and you actually start getting leads and you're converting these leads, you're not going to be able to keep up with all of these things that you started to tackle in the beginning. So really just keep that marketing and advertising plan easy. Like literally you should be able to write down in 3-4 bullet points, like on a napkin, exactly like these are what I'm focused on. Like this is my marketing strategy. I'm going to go after Facebook groups. I'm going to go after, whatever it is, right? Like I'm going to have a geographic farm and I'm going to send out, mailers every month. But like that would be one thing, and you might do 3, and that would be like the max that I would recommend for a new agent. And so simple. The one bullet point that I didn't put in here that I think is important, actually, I just mentioned it, was that it is like specific, right? Like don't just say social media. Like that is not a marketing plan or an advertising plan, right? Like it's got to be specific. Like I'm going to do X, Y, and Z on this platform or with this, specific system or something, right? So simple, specific, and then you got to be consistent at it. And so that's why, again, picking a few different ones that you can be consistent in is very important, because that's where the power is going to come from. It's not just, you do this thing one time or a couple times in like 1 month and you start getting all the results from it. The results usually don't show up until quite a bit later, at least like the really meaningful results. You might get, things here and there in the beginning, which is hopeful, but at the same time, all of the really, really good stuff comes after you've been doing it for a while and you've perfected your craft and you've shown that you're going to consistently show up to people and they believe in what you're saying and doing. And so that only can happen once you've been consistent doing it for a long time. And again, you've got a defined target audience in that marketing plan, right? Like, because if you don't have that defined target audience, your messaging is not going to be effective, right? If you're just targeting all the buyers and sellers out there in your market, what you say to them is not going to stand out, right? But if you know exactly like, hey, this is my, my target audience, I know what these people struggle with. Like I know what's going on in their head that, that they're concerned about, or that excites them, right? And then you can take messaging that really, hones in on that. And that's when all of your marketing is going to be more effective. If you are doing advertising, it will be much more effective, is when it's like, you are speaking to me, right? Like, I know exactly, like, how do you know this is what's going on in my life? Like when your marketing is that honed in, then you're going to be effective. And you can only do that if you've defined your target audience. So, okay. Next, get your business cards and other promotional materials. Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, you got to get a professional headshot. Even if you have to pay for it, it's probably going to be a couple $100, right? Like at max, unless you're in some super expensive area, New York, Miami, LA, like maybe it's going to be more expensive, but it's still worth it. You got to get a professional business card. You can kind of see some of these examples down here on the bottom right are just, different templates and things like that. But you'll notice for business cards, one of the things that I recommend is Fiverr. So like all of these examples that you see there came from Fiverr, right? Like I just went to different people who create them, and literally these designs, you can have them made for you for like less than $20, right? Like, so they'll, go to Fiverr. You got my link there, kylehandy.link/Fiverr. And when you do that, go to Fiverr and just search business cards, and you'll see a bunch of different, business cards. You can even search real estate business cards, and just go with one that you like, one of these examples. Or if you found a different example, just send them that as like a screenshot and say, hey, I'd like my business cards to look like this. Here's my headshot, here's my information. They'll send you back a completed file, and then you can take that and have it be printed at like Vistaprint or wherever for pretty inexpensive. And you have a very nice looking business card. Also, you can get, a digital business card. I would recommend having both. I know a lot of people that are like, I'm just going to get digital. I think that's great if that's how you want to be, but still having a physical card is going to be helpful in some situations. Like even still today, I give out, physical business cards quite often. So promo materials. So that's the other thing, is like figuring out, like, I know it's kind of overwhelming sometimes to think like, oh, I got to get all of these like marketing things. but it's 2023. You actually don't need to create everything. There's companies that like that is what they do, and they make it very simple for you to where you can literally take all that they've done and just simply change a couple things like your color, put your logo on it, and it looks like your material. And so one of those companies there is Coffee and Contracts. I've used them for quite some time now. They're a great company. Have every month they come out with new content that you can use. They develop it in a Canva template. So when you get access to their platform, you log in and you click on whatever it is you need, whether it's a listing presentation. So like I know a lot of agents ask for like, hey, do you have a listing presentation? Do you have a buyer presentation? Like I don't like mine or I don't have one. You can go here, even if you just signed up for 1 month, right? Like, ideally they want you to sign up and like, be there monthly and all that kind of stuff. But if you just needed everything, you're like, I'm going to sign up for 1 month. I'm going to go grab all this stuff, get access to, what I need in my business today, make all of it. You could do that, right? Like, you can get the listing presentation and you'll see, once you're in there, you're going to realize like there's a lot of benefits. You're probably going to want to stick around because, that's going to be all of your future social media posts and, emails and videos and stuff that you can do. But at the very minimum, you're going to get access to where all you got to do is click on the link. It'll open up Canva and it'll allow you to change the colors. So like within a couple of clicks, you could change, to your branding. You could change around the messaging if you want. You can change around like the image. So that way you're in the image versus just whoever is kind of a placeholder in that particular template. But they look like modern, good real estate templates. And so that would be a very quick way to like get up and running, have a cohesive brand, and to be looking established and professional right away. And I think it's like 40 or 50 bucks a month for Coffee and Contracts. So like I say, even if you had to do it just for a month and kind of see it, test it out, you can even get $15 off your first charge by using that code Kyle15, and then just get the stuff you need, rebrand it, and then go from there. All right. So next is setting up a website and social media accounts. So we already kind of talked a little bit about social media earlier, so I won't talk a ton about it. I'll focus more on the website side of things for this. But I definitely do just want to reiterate, for social media, make sure that you do go out there and try and at least own whatever the branding you want to get. Make sure you own it. So like that's the important thing is like if you're using a personal brand, it's your name. Make sure your name is available in all of these different handles, right? And you might have to go with something different. Like maybe it's like, for instance, a lot of my handle's Real Kyle Handy because Kyle Handy was taken, right? And so then you can, use that across all of your platforms if you had to. But just figure out like, hey, is this, especially if it's like not a personal brand, if it's something else, like a whole different name of something, you're not using your name. You want to make sure that URL is available. So that way, when you create a website, you can use that in your website URL. The social handles are available and all that good stuff. Because the one thing you won't want is down the road to have like your Instagram handle be one thing and your Facebook be another thing and your URL for your website is another thing. So, get all of the stuff, have it, even if you're not necessarily posting, just own them. So that way you have the handles and go from there. Now, as far as a website goes, the important things to kind of understand on your website is there's kind of 3 different ways that you can have a website, and I recommend that all agents should have a website, right? Even at the bare minimum, that it's just like informational, right? Like, so let's say you don't want to spend any money or very little money, and your brokerage doesn't give you a website or anything like that, and you're like, man, but I want a website. Well, you can go out and get hosting. I actually use SiteGround for my hosting. I don't have a link in there, but SiteGround, if you go to kylehandy.link/SiteGround, SITE ground, GROUND, you can get hosting. I think it's like, I don't know, $2-3 a month, right? And then they'll host WordPress, which WordPress is a website builder for you. And you could actually just go and buy a domain for $10, a year. And so for less than, a few dollars, you have a website, you have WordPress on that website, and WordPress is so simple to use. It's a template, right? Like you just have a theme that's installed, and literally if you can do like a drag and drop editor and just change around some headings, change around some of the text, you'll have an informational website. Now, where it gets a little bit more complex is if you want to have search installed on that website. So like, let's say you wanted to do that and you were sticking the DIY route, then you've got to get something called an IDX, or Internet Data Exchange feed, added to your website. And that's where it gets a little more complicated, because now you got to go with a theme that is IDX ready, which you can find them. If you go on Google, type in IDX ready themes, WordPress themes, and then at that point, what you'll do is you'll have to go purchase an IDX. So you have to get the theme to install the theme to your website. You'll have to get the IDX, which, like, for instance, Showcase IDX. That's one that I've used. It's a great IDX. It looks good to consumers, and you pay for that like on a monthly basis. And then you also want to get a CRM. Some IDXs will have a CRM built into it. The CRM is kind of like the back end. That's where all of your leads go. And when people are searching for properties on your website, if they register, it goes to your CRM. So that's kind of the workflow there. Or you can go with an all-in-one kind of box solution. Those are things like KV Core, Boomtown, Chime. There's quite a few others that you can go with there, or you can go full custom. I actually have a good relationship with the people over at Agent Fire. Great company. I mean, they have, it is considered full custom because you can go full custom, but they also have kind of like templated custom websites. So, I mean, it's not going to be like all the other people that have KV Core or all the other people that have Boomtown. It will be different in the sense that since you're going with Agent Fire, but they have also different themes and stuff like that you can choose from them. But then also, if you wanted to go full custom, where it's like, hey, I want my website to look like X, Y, and Z, they'll build it for you. Just depends on what you're looking for. But I know some people, they'll get in, they'll say, oh, hey, I got this quote from a web developer to make me a website, and they want like $15,000, and that's way too much. Like, I would not get in the business right away and spend that. I mean, if you've been in the business a while and you're selling a lot of real estate and things are going well and you want to up your web presence, by all means, maybe go do that. But in the beginning, there's much more affordable, more effective options, in my opinion. So, all right, moving on. Making connections with other agents and industry professionals. This is super important when you're a new agent, especially when you're a new agent, because it's kind of a lonely business if you're doing this thing by yourself, right? Like, if you're just out here working in your home office, calling leads, trying to figure out social media, and you have no outlets to like talk about this business to other people, it gets really, really overwhelming, really not fun very quickly. And so I would recommend, making that a point of your business, especially early on when you don't have a whole lot of contacts already, is like, make that like, hey, every week I want to have a goal to go, have lunch or have a coffee with an agent, right? And just by talking to different agents, you're going to hear things and you're going to share things you're doing, and and learn very quickly from their experiences, and from them sharing feedback with you. And so that's really important to have not just one person. Like, don't just be that person who's like, I'm really, close to this one agent, and that's my, I only have that one relationship. You should really get in the habit of networking, because that's what this business is all about, but also network with other agents. And then, of course, other industry professionals, title companies, mortgage lenders, inspectors. You never know who's going to be able to give advice, mentorship, guidance, or like help with like a potential problem or issue in your business. I mean, for probably, 4 or 5 years, my main mentor, the person who I learned the most from and who helped me grow my business, was my lender, right? Like a super successful lender, big time business guy, shared so much with me. And I still have great relationship with today. I just, don't necessarily go every day for mentorship anymore. But that being said, that was a great opportunity, right? And I would have never known that if I wasn't out there like networking and meeting people. But yeah, you got to be looking for those opportunities. And so sometimes going to mixers, sometimes going to like different training events that these people, that these professionals put on. And then of course, going beyond that, because that's kind of like the surface level thing. You meet somebody at a mixer, you meet somebody at a training, take it one step further and say, hey, I would love to grab coffee with you, love to grab lunch, hear what you're working on. That kind of stuff is really, really important. All right, let's check on, let's see here if we got any questions here. All right, so yeah, we got one question. Says, so if you use Agent Fire, which CRM would you use to work with it? Great question. I would recommend Follow Up Boss, just because personally I love Follow Up Boss. I think that it's a very intuitive system, and it just works. Like, that's the one thing I cannot stand, if like a CRM system doesn't work the way I want it to. And so Follow Up Boss works great. I've used it for, probably 6-7 years now. So definitely highly recommend Follow Up Boss as your CRM to work with Agent Fire. And I actually have some team leaders in my team that's exactly the route they have. They've got Agent Fire connected to Follow Up Boss. So, all right, let's dive back in. Next is going to be investing in your continuing education and your professional development. So again, part of these items, right? These are the things you need to do first. Is you're not going to learn everything that you need to know early on in the beginning. So a lot of your time that you're going to spend in your early in your career and probably throughout is going to be invested into personal development, getting better, in your craft, and your, improving different skills that you have. Is going to be always extremely important. And so you got to always, take time for that. Put time on your calendar, make it time blocked, or like at least like, hey, once a week I do this, or whatever it is, twice a month, I plan to do this. But the thing that I will say though, when it comes to training and education, is don't just try and take a bunch of different training just to take it. Watching all these random YouTube videos. Like, yeah, I would love for you to watch every video on my channel, but at the same time, that would not do you any good. I think what's important is when you develop that plan, you figure out like, these are my marketing avenues, that you go then consume all the content that you can around those specific avenues from all the different creators, right? Like on YouTube, or from all the different podcasts that you can find, or go find a course if somebody offers it. But make sure that it's specific to what it is that you're already doing or that you want to do. And don't just start just taking training just for training's sake, right? So like, and then do it one thing at a time. That doesn't mean that forever you're always only going to be able to learn that one thing. But, be a master at it, get really, really good, block out everything else, and then just focus on that one type of thing. And then once you get good at it, you build systems around it, all that kind of stuff, then start trying to like learn some other things, right? All right. Next, establish a budget and set some financial goals. So this would also be known as creating your business plan. And your business plan is different than your marketing and advertising plan, right? Your business plan is where you actually kind of take that like step back, 10,000 foot, view of your business. And you think like, hey, what are my goals, right? Financially, how many houses, all this kind of stuff, right? Like, and usually, I'll be honest, it starts financially, right? You're just gonna have to figure out, how much money do I need to make? Once you know that, or that you want to make, or whatever, once you know that, you can backtrack everything. So like, it doesn't really matter how many houses you're gonna sell, right? Like, that doesn't matter. It's how much money do you need to make? And then from there, you can backtrack that into how many houses you need to sell, or that you want to sell, right? So like, for instance, if you're like, I need to make $100,000 this year. Okay, cool. Well, hey, what's the average price point in my market? Is it 300,000? Is it $1 million, right? Like, every area is different. And so like in my area, I'll take it for example, let's say my area is $300,000. Well, then I know that my average price point, or my average commission, is probably going to be around a little less than $9,000, because our average commission is 3%. But just the way discounts and work and things like that, I know this from doing this long enough, and my average is like 2.6%, right? Across all the deals that I've ever done. And so, but, and that's, like I said, I try not to ever discount, but, if you have to, or like, for instance, like I do like move up deals where if somebody's selling their house and buying with me, I do give them a discount on that side. Or like, maybe it's referrals and stuff, and you're sending out a lot of referrals for your business. But on average, I get 2.6%. But let's just say you want to use, 2.5% to 3%, whatever that number means for you. Now you're at least thinking like, okay, this is my average price point. If I'm going after the average price point, then this is my average commission, and this is how many houses I need to sell to get there. But if you're like, hey, you know what, part of my business plan, Kyle, is that I am going to go after luxury buyers. What does that mean? Like, how expensive is a luxury house on average? What would that be? What's your commission look like? That's totally fine. Or if you're like, hey, my thing is first time home buyers, chances are you might be a little bit below the average price point, right? So you want to factor those things in. That's what I mean by taking that 10,000 foot view of your business and really kind of putting these pieces into play and like thinking about like how does this stuff work together, so that way you can develop a plan. And then you say, okay, well, cool, I need to sell 10 houses this year to be able to hit my financial goals. So then what's the next step? And you're basically just reverse engineering how you are going to work on a daily basis. So it starts out with like an annual plan, and then you're going to backtrack that into like a quarterly goal, into monthly goals, into weekly goals, and into daily goals. And so, but knowing that, hey, I've got to sell 10 houses in a year. Okay, perfect. Well, what's my marketing avenue? How am I going to do that? Well, let's say I'm going to do it via YouTube, or I'm going to do it via Facebook, or I'm going to do it with for sale by owners or expired. Well, part of that education where I said, hey, you need to go out and like become the master and just learn that one specific topic. Part of that topic should be figuring out what is the average conversion rate for a lead of that source, right? Because then you can say, okay, cool. Well, like, these few people, it seems like, it takes them this many deals to get a deal, right? Or this many calls to get a lead. You can start to figure out those conversion ratios. And even if you have to ask questions, right? Like if agents doing this, ask them, that's an important question. Hey, what's the conversion ratio for you on these? Right? And sometimes they may not know. You might have to ask it a few different times to a few different people. But when you're becoming the mastering the craft, and especially like if you don't already have data yourself, that's part of being the master, is like going out there, finding these answers. That way you can start backfilling in your business plan and saying like, all right, cool. Like now I at least know I need to sell 10 homes, and it takes, 50 leads of this source to get one closing, right? A 2% conversion ratio. Well, then that means I need to get 500 leads, right? To close the amount of homes that I did. All right. Well, hey, how am I going to get 500 leads? Well, is it a source that you have to pay per lead? Is it a source that you have to make cold calls and, a certain percentage of your cold calls will result in a lead? Like you start to really kind of figure all that out. And that will help you to hit your goals, right? So ask the questions to find your answer. So it's super important. You got to ask questions in this business. Nobody's just going to really, hand it to you, tell you things. You got to be willing to step out there, ask these questions, seek out these answers, right? Okay. All right. Next is create a list of potential clients. All right. So, and this is where it's going to get you thinking, right? And you're like, all right, well, maybe you've lived in your area for a long time. You've already got, a list on your phone. You've got it on your Facebook friends. You've got it wherever, right? We'll start putting that list on a spreadsheet, put it in your CRM if you're using a CRM, but aim for at least 100 people, and maybe that's challenging. Maybe you just moved to a new area and you're like, man, there's no way I can get 100 people. I don't even, know 10 people. That's okay. Like I'm just saying, like shoot for 100 if you can, right? And these are people that, ideally they know, like, and trust you. But if, maybe you'll settle for like know and like, and you have to build the trust, right? But it's, 100 people, and maybe you got to work that list. You want to get their email, phone number, address, and birthday. And then the other part is that if you can't build your list to 100, well, now the first thing you really got to get cranking on, right? Like you got to figure out a way of how do I add people to my list, right? Like that's going to be your burning question. And hopefully the marketing plan that you design is going to answer that question, right? It's going to say like, hey, I got to do X, Y, and Z. And you can start tracking, are people adding to your list by doing the work that you've set out to do? And if it is, great. If it's not, well then, hey, we need to retool that. We got to figure that out. But you got to start building a list. A list is so important. It's basically, that's what you build. That's your lifeblood in this business. It's really the only intangible, like the only asset that we as real estate agents, create, right? Like, I mean, you might get an office, you might buy an office for your business at some point in time. You might have like a computer and a DSLR camera. Those aren't really, like, if you were to sell your business down the road 10 years from now, the main thing that's of value if somebody was to buy that business is your list, right? So always look at your list like it's that important. That's where the money comes from. It's your list, and then it's the relationships with the people on that list. So if you just focus on that, adding people to that list and increasing the relationships for the people on that list, if that was the only thing you took from this call, if that was all you got, that is like the bottom line of being in real estate, right? Adding to your list and increasing those relationships. And don't rely on anyone but yourself in this business. So, and what I mean by that is, like, especially if you're a new agent, a brokerage promises you something, a team promises you something. Like, you cannot rely on that. Now, if it pans out, if it happens and all this stuff is great, that's awesome, right? Like that's cool that it worked out in this way, or that it enhanced what you're doing. But this business is about you. It doesn't matter if you're a team agent, if you're a team leader, if you're an individual agent, no matter what, this thing comes back to you. Nobody's going to build this business as, thoughtfully, as meaningfully as you will. And so you have to know that early on, that like nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's going to do the work for you. If you want to have success at this business, you've got to go out there and do it. Don't rely on anybody to do it for you, or on any promises or anything like that, right? Like, I mean, there's times that like I hope and pray that things work out if I do certain things, but like at the same time, I'm also like working on other things, like I'm not invested completely on that, like on somebody else. Like I'm invested on what I'm doing, what I can control. And so I think that's really important to also know. All right. So the other important part is establish a system for tracking leads and client interactions, right? Like, you won't believe, I mean, I would say it's probably 90% of agents out there are just doing business. Like they're just willy-nilly, like they're calling people, they're texting, they're on social media messaging, they're sending out flyers, they're doing all these actions. But then if I asked them, hey, can you show me what you did this week, or show me what you did this month? Like 90% of agents wouldn't be able to show me what they did. They go, oh, well, yeah, but I did this, but they can't show it to me. And this is so important. If you cannot show what you do, that means you cannot track what you do. And if you don't track what you do, there's no way you'll improve it. There's no way you'll scale it. And so you have to be able to establish a system for tracking leads and client interactions. And then use it, right? Like, it's not enough just to be like, oh, well, I signed up for this CRM system, or I've got a spreadsheet, or I've got a list that, people are on, but I haven't opened it up in a week, or I haven't opened it up in a month. Like, no, you've got to use it. If you have a system, you've created the system, and if you're not using it, well, then you better invest in somebody who is going to use it on your behalf and pay that person, right? Whether it's an inside sales agent or whatever it is, but you've got to be able to track your efforts, track everything that you're doing, and put it somewhere, right? So you can tell, like, from a month-to-month basis, is it increasing? Is it getting better? Am I converting as much as I should be, right? You can't do anything, you can't improve if you don't know, what your true efforts are. And I'll be honest, as agents, we always, looking back at our past activity, we always overestimate what we did in the past, right? So when you start tracking it, you actually start to realize, like, wow, I thought I talked to more people, or I thought I generated more leads this week, or whatever it is. But when you look at it on paper, you're like, oh man, I guess I really didn't do as much as I thought that I did, or that I thought that I do. It's really eye-opening, and it'll really just kind of start to change the way that you do things, right? It'll make you more focused on doing the activities that are going to move the needle, because now you're tracking it. All right, guys, that's it. Like, subscribe, do all the things. I hope you like this video. I'm going to stick around. We've still got actually a few minutes here. If we've got some questions, I'm happy to respond to them. And if you're watching this video on the replay, then put the questions in the comments and I will respond to them in there. But if you are still here with me live, which we've got a lot of you, go ahead, bring up the questions. I'm going to stick around for a bit and answer them. So let me turn off the screen share there. There we go. All right. So let's see. We got Aaron says, thank you. At the end of the day, it is your business. 100%, Aaron. That is true for sure. All right. What else do we have? Cheryl McKay, Nova Scotia. Oh my gosh. Jesse says, happy to be here. Love Kyle's content and cool to see him live. Oh, I love it, Jesse. Thanks for being here in Denver metro area. Living in Denver metro. Nice. Go check out your channel. All right, who else we got? Well, guys, tell me this. If you're a little nervous to ask the question, what was your number one takeaway from this call? So out of those 11 things, what stuck with you that you think, man, I got to work on this. That means something to me. Like I need to go back and do a better job of this. I would love to hear. Here we go. I'm not sure who this one is, but says, thank you so much. I need to organize and prioritize. This really helps 100%. If you've been in the business for a little bit, even a couple months or something, sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, I did get started on the wrong foot. I started doing way too much. And now you got all these balls in the air. You may be at that point where you got to sit down and make a list. Like, what are all the things you're working on, and just prioritize them, right? And say, hey, and then when you have that list drawn up, it'll make it really clear of okay, I need to actually just focus on these top 3 things now. I'm going to stop doing all these other ones or whatever. But yeah, prioritization is really important if you've already gotten started. Advice for someone moving to a new market. Well, awesome, Claudia. Thank you for jumping on the channel. What I would say for a new market, networking is going to be important, right? So you may not know a lot of people right away, but that's got to be your goal, is to start getting to know people as quickly as possible, right? Become, the person who goes out, you're at the Starbucks, doing some work in the morning, and you're meeting people that are in line or that are sitting next to you. Maybe you want to jump on a couple committees. Maybe there's some things that you're passionate about, hobbies, and you're just connecting with people. You'd be so surprised how quickly you can build a network when you're focused on building a network, right? So even if you're in a new market, it's okay. You may not have, 100 people or 100 relationships to start with, but you could build 100 relationships in a month, honestly, if you really were focused on networking specifically. You could certainly do that. So, that's not a hindrance in my eyes. It's just something now I got to go out there and do that because I'm not, starting with something already. But you can, if you're that type, then I would say go do that. If you're not the type to be belly to belly, or you want to go out there and, be talking to people at networking events, then you might, want to do something from a digital perspective. I totally get that. But at the same time, you also have to realize that if you're going to do that, and if you want success pretty quickly, you may have to advertise just so you can get your services in front of people. Not always. There's some things you can do on social, like joining Facebook groups and stuff like that, and truly just adding value to those communities where you can start to get people to trickle in and start building relationships digitally. But of course, advertising would also be effective if you have the budget to do that. So those would be my recommendations there. All right. Aaron, do you have any videos that help you learn how to navigate the MLS? I don't, Aaron, and the reason I don't is because it is pretty specific. My MLS for San Antonio Board of Realtors MLS looks way different than my buddies out there in Florida or people up in Illinois or wherever, right? So just, there's not one necessarily video that will help. Maybe, if you think that might be helpful just to see in general kind of how I use the MLS, that might be a good suggestion. But of course, every MLS, the actual buttons, the user interface is going to be different. But I do have a video that talks about how I do a CMA. And in that one, it goes through with my MLS, obviously, because I'm showing how to do it. So that might be helpful. But yeah, I don't have anything that shows everybody's MLS or anything like that. Pam, branding. Got to work on that branding, Pam. All right. Hey, let me know how I can help. Yeah, that's something that I didn't do a lot of it early on, and now I'm oh my gosh, this is awesome. I love the power of branding. That brings in business in your sleep, right? That's what branding can do for you when you build a brand. Is it keeps that business working for you at all times. Cheryl, so useful. So much of your points relate to operating any effective business. I especially liked point number 9, establish a system to track interactions with clients. Yep. Yeah, it's super important. Not a lot of agents do it. Trust me. I'm one of the rare nerds that my degree is in finance. And so I guess, I've always liked numbers. I like spreadsheets. I like tracking things. So fortunately that, I was blessed with those. And if you're not that way, that's an important thing to bring up too, is it's okay. Like if you're not naturally bent that way, but you need to find a way to, to make yourself be that way. Maybe you got to hire somebody to do that for you, even if it's part-time, like a virtual assistant or someone that is kind of has that brain where they like to do that stuff, that they'll do that for you for, an hour or two a week, right? Maybe it's just an accountability partner that like says, hey, did you put your numbers in or whatever, right? But you got to have some kind of a system to make sure that work gets done. All right, Jesse, I learned so much by talking with my lender partners and title rep. One of the biggest things as a new agent is anxiety over not having the right answers, but networking helps a lot. Yes, 100%. Totally get that as, anxiety from not having the right answers. What I'll say to that is I just feel like, because I was there too, not having the right answers. In fact, so I've been in the business 15 years. So when I started, I was 21 years old in real estate back in 2008. And so trust me, I had all those fears, right? Like I was working with people that were in their 50s and 60s, and they're like looking at me like, who's this kid that's going to sell me this $400,000 house, right? Like I didn't even own a house myself at that point. And so, I totally get that. And I think, the way that I was able to alleviate that fear was just realizing that I was never going to tell somebody something that I didn't know the answer to. So if I didn't know the answer, I just would tell them, like, hey, that's a great question. I've never been asked that before, but I tell you what, I'm going to go find the answer for you and I'll come back to you with the right answer. Is that okay? And when you're that transparent and that honest with people, and they know that you're working to their benefit, and then of course you actually do follow up and you get them the answer that you promised them, that means a lot to people, right? And that'll go a long way. So that it basically gave me the encouragement that like I could do anything. Like I could do anything as long as I just don't like try and lie to somebody or like, throw one thing over on somebody. I'll never get in a situation that I can't handle, right? Because I can always talk to people. I can always get answers, even after the fact, right? So, so that's that. I think the mentality you almost have to just kind of take. Andrea says, building a client list ASAP. Do it. You can do that this week. You could have a list. You could have a list of 50 people by the end of the week if you really set your mind to it. All right. Appreciate everything, but navigating, getting coffee with other agents in my area hit home for me. I love it. Hey, trust me, I love my coffee as well. So I've worked in many coffee shops. So trust me, I've been there. I've gotten business from coffee shops. I love working in it. Now at this point, I don't do as much of it, just because I'm doing more of the YouTube videos and all that good stuff. And I don't know how that would work. People in Starbucks would probably kick me out if I was talking this loud in Starbucks. But see, Kyle did cover how to do. Yep, perfect. Thanks, Jesse. Aaron, thank you. All right. Your MLS should have training, including videos. Yeah, for sure. Like I know Sabor, San Antonio Board of Realtors has a great training for our MLS. I think they have it digitally, like on demand in mind, but I know for a fact they definitely have like in-person ones where you can go in and they actually sit down and show you how to do it. So look into that. Good to expand social interactions to groups, to clubs, organizations, church. There are lots that cater to special interests. 100%. Whatever it is that you're in. See, that's the thing is you got to pick something that means something to you. If you pick a niche or like a field or a specialty or a target audience that actually means something to you, you will want to do it, right? Like you'll be more excited and encouraged to keep doing the work that it takes to reach that audience. If you're just like, doing this for the money, to work for buyers and sellers, and it's all random stuff, then this job doesn't really mean a whole lot, right? Like then it's just a job. But when you make this thing about like your audience and you make this thing about like helping other people and people that you care about specifically, well, now it's like, oh my gosh, I want to do better and I want to do more. And you'll be more effective at your business as well. So yeah, love that. All right, there we go, guys. Aaron says, good to know. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you all. I appreciate it. And if you if you got some value out of this video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already to my channel, and and jump on here next week. I do this every single Tuesday at 11 o'clock Central Time. If you're not on my email list, head over to kylehandy.com/business plan and get a copy of my business plan, and you'll get on my email list. So that way I will email you whenever prior to me going live or whenever I release a new video. So you'll get notified of that right away. So If you haven't done that already, head over there and go do it. But I will see you guys next Tuesday. Have an amazing week. Talk to you later. Bye, everybody.